So, the work we do at the Energy Project began several decades ago with professional athletes, and we were trying to help them perform better under pressure. And over time, what we realized is that the same kinds of things we were understanding and doing with these athletes applied just as much to people in the corporate world. A key understanding was that human beings actually experience not one set of feelings during the day, but they move between four different energy experiences during the day. At their best, which we came to call the performance zone, they're feeling positive and optimistic, engaged, excited. The problem is that's not how any of us feel all the time. And we're living in a world of enormous stress and demand and complexity. And what happens in those circumstances is that we have a tendency to fall reactively into what we call the survival zone. And that's where you move when you're feeling an experience of some kind of threat or danger. Something about, in the case of athletes, about losing, but for a person in everyday corporate life, it could be any kind of threat. It could be a boss, it could be a difficult deadline, and people would move into this zone that we came to understand physiologically was fight or flight. The first thing that happens in fight or flight is that your vision begins to narrow so that you get more compartmentalized and narrower in your ability to see options. And then ultimately, if you go far enough into the survival zone, your prefrontal cortex completely shuts down and you're no longer able to think, much less think reflectively. If you spend too much time in that survival zone, you drop down into what we would call the burnout zone, where you have essentially no energy at all. So what is the solution to this? And the answer is the lower right zone, which we call the renewal zone. Namely, the importance of rest and recovery. We learned this from athletes. They were geniuses at managing what we call work-rest ratios, understanding that the recovery and refueling of energy is as important to your performance as the expenditure of energy toward a goal, and that each one needs to happen in a rhythmic way in order to avoid landing in the survival zone and the burnout zone. And that recovery can take place in four different ways: physically, sleep, fitness, nutrition. It can happen emotionally in terms of restoring yourself with positive emotions. It can happen mentally by quieting the mind, and it can even happen spiritually by moving from a focus on yourself to serving a cause larger than yourself. So a great modern manager or leader has to be a chief energy officer who mobilizes, focuses, inspires, and ensures the regular renewal of energy among all of their employees. That's who you need to be, and you need to start it by modeling it yourself, by building it into your life, by ensuring that you have a rhythmic balance between expending energy and recovering energy, so that you can pass that on to those who work for you, because energy is contagious and disproportionately so when you have influence over others.